Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me here today. Today, I will be sharing some of the lessons that I've learned in nearly 20 years in product management. And hopefully after this presentation, you'll have some takeaways that you can bring into your day-to-day as product managers. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna give you a first quick overview of my career journey. So I had graduated from Cal, and the first job I took out of college was in the finance organization at Hewlett Packard in their mobile computing and handheld device division, multi-billion-dollar business. And I had the opportunity to be part of the finance group in which I was consolidating the financials every month and reporting and analyzing the data. And that was a great learning experience as far as how the P&L was put together every month and what was important in bringing top line and bottom line results to a company. And then I decided that I wanted to do something different. And so I was able to start my product career at Oracle. And again, that was also a great time in my career, lots of learnings, especially since it was my first product management role. I was part of the e-business suite of products, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And then I went back to business school and I got my MBA at UCLA. And I was fortunate enough during the summer timeframe to be able to participate in a internship program offered by IBM called IBM Extreme Blue. And that internship program brought together MBA students and top engineering students from across the country to build out and innovate on new initiatives that were being put on the table within IBM. And I'll talk more about that as well. At Yahoo, that's where I was able to start moving into a product management role in more in the consumer and internet space. And essentially after business school, I still had this calling to go back into product management, but wanted to try something different. So at Yahoo, I was a part of the online communities platform group where we were building platform products for use ultimately by hundreds of millions of users on the Yahoo network. I was at Yahoo for several years, and then I joined Adobe Systems, again, in a different space, working on Acrobat, Reader, e-signature solutions, and ultimately what became the document cloud at Adobe. So that was another great run in product management and leadership at a great company. In the last 5.5 years, I have joined Ingram Micro and am responsible for heading up the Shipwire product team, as well as have extended into other responsibilities, including customer support, implementation, program management, and training and development. And that has, again, been a new space in learning e-commerce, supply chain, and logistics, as well as building a career further in growing and expanding even beyond the product realm. So I will then now go into sharing some of the specific things that I learned during this journey of my career. So at Oracle, again, I mentioned that this is my first product management role, and I was a part of this group in the e-business suite of products under financial applications and responsible for a fairly complex product line whereby accounting groups in very large enterprises were using the Oracle software on a daily and monthly basis. And you can see that there were a lot of different workflows that we were managing. I remember when I first joined, there was a user manual for our particular product, and it was 1,200 pages long. So you can imagine the amount of learning that I had to do during this time. So some of the things that I would say that I learned during this period at Oracle was that, especially if you're early on in your career, it's really important to build on the PM foundations. And I think a lot of you probably are feeling the same and understanding working with the product school or looking at other webinars or other ways of actually building out the fundamentals and understanding around product management. And that could be things related to market strategy, market sizing, competitive analysis, understanding Agile and Scrum and prioritization, understanding how to do user research and develop that empathy with customers. So what I would say is definitely learn those frameworks, but also put them into practice. And oftentimes you'll be able to observe those best practices from some of your senior product leaders. I remember the leadership team there, my own manager at Oracle, really gave me a lot of insights. And all I did was really observe what they did in delivering their requirements for products, or how they went about in understanding the market landscape, or how they executed on a particular release. I would take a lot of those best practices and figure out how to make them my own. One of the other things I would say, which was something that has been important when I was at Oracle, but also throughout my career, is really to understand your product. Oftentimes you walk into an organization and you were giving a task to be responsible for a specific product area. And that's important to understand, but there's also the context of the rest of the product itself. And so in order to know your product, for applications and for products where you can do this, it's very important to be able to use your product as a user of your product. If you are a web application, make sure you're logging into your product, experiencing the product as a customer, developing that user empathy. Also talking to designers and developers and architects, maybe folks that have been there longer than you have, to really understand the decisions that they made in getting the product this far, and understanding the nuances in the product too, because all of those pieces come together and help you ultimately make the best product decisions going forward. So really, really understanding your product, and also rolling up your sleeves and learn by doing. It's great to have all of that knowledge, but then jumping knee deep right into specific projects, really, really digging in, and don't underestimate also how important your leadership is to the organization. And this is at all levels. It could be in any conversation you're having, whether it's a one-on-one with the architect, or it's in a Scrum meeting where you and your developers are grooming a backlog for the next couple sprints. It's really important that you understand that as the product manager, that your leadership in any conversation is going to guide outcomes for your organization, and to really rally the team behind you, whatever the conversation may be. So something to just keep in mind, no matter who you're speaking to and at what level of your organization. So let's move on to my time at IBM. So I mentioned that this was a summer internship program. So the way that works is that there are various locations throughout the US. IBM brings together different business students with technical students, and essentially pairs an MBA student with several engineering students from top schools around the country. And in my case, at the end of this summer, and you're able to be given an opportunity to present to an executive team at IBM in their New York office. And in my case, here's just an example of the showcase that we also had to press while we were out there on the East Coast. And my summer internship project was related to privacy in the management of data for medical healthcare situations. That essentially what we did was we built a prototype using real life user profiles, and was able to demonstrate the value proposition, partnering with the technical team, but also getting the different stakeholders and sponsors within IBM to be able to understand what this would look like in a real life scenario. And so it was a really great experience. And some of the things that I remember with this experience, and I'll go back to when I was interviewing, the recruiter had come onto the UCLA campus and he had my resume in hand and he was like, well, this looks really great. You look great on paper, and now it's your chance to prove yourself in person. And that really resonated with me, and I still remember that conversation about the importance of your resume and your LinkedIn profile as far as a way to get your foot in the door for different opportunities that you may have in product management. And this could be for external opportunities, but even in your own company, it's important to keep your profile up to date, because you may actually gain additional opportunities within your own organization based on information regarding your experience and your interests. So, but at the end of the day, right, you might look good on paper or in your online profile, but it's really important, obviously, to prove yourself in person as you are interviewing or if you are starting a new role. And when I was at IBM, obviously this was yet another new industry and a new space for me. So doing your homework, understanding the industry by doing online research, but not only that, talking to the stakeholders, reading news articles, and then translating and synthesizing all of that into product execution. Because at the end of the day, if you're not effective at translating and getting them down into a real result, then you're not being effective in what you're doing. So what we did during the summer was because it was a short period of time, we focused on getting a real outcome of producing a prototype and a proof of concept and using real profiles. In the example that we had, I had to come up to speed on how privacy policies and HIPAA requirements were embedded into company policy, and then how can you automatically enforce that through systems. And so we had different user profiles like a chief privacy officer, a doctor, a patient, the lab technician, and the researcher. And depending on their role, they had a part to play in how the system works. And so being able to show a demo of that is also oftentimes a really great way to allow your audience to understand the value. And I make a point here about don't let the imposter syndrome hold you back. So I think in any point in anyone's career, this is a valid notion. I think for me, I walked into many different scenarios and different roles throughout my career where I did not have a lot of experience or background. A lot of the product management skills will transfer, and there's a lot of the things you gain, you'll be surprised how it gives you the toolbox in order to execute. And so I wouldn't let this get in the way. And if you have to, you fake it until you make it, and gain that confidence and the ability to be able to execute. So that's something to keep in mind, regardless where you are in your career. Then let's move on to my time at Yahoo. So at Yahoo, this is the homepage at that time. I was hired and responsible for a couple different online community platforms. And during my time there, I had to work with a lot of different groups because it was a platform product. My charter was to have to work with all the different product managers and engineering managers and other stakeholders within the company. So one of the things that I was responsible for was really around trust and safety. And so during my time there, it really solidified my my feeling that it is really important to protect your brand and your users by building safety and compliance into your product and not making it an afterthought. So some of the things, as you would know, especially now with social media, there's a lot of user-generated content or different ways that people can use your products. And it's really important to be able to think ahead of time as you are building any product feature to understand how it is to make it a safe environment for your users to use your products, but also that it complies with regulatory or company guidance that you have. So partnering with your legal and policy teams within your company and your organization is really a great way to go about this. Sometimes there is a little bit of a tension between, you may think, compliance, safety and the customer and user experience, but it's something that product managers need to learn how to balance and to evaluate in order to ultimately have a holistic view of the world. So that this was something that you can take with you as you think about your products going forward, and something that has resonated with me even today, where I'm in the e-commerce and logistics space. There's additional compliance and regulations around shipping and how you handle products. And so this particular learning that I had at Yahoo has applied in every single product that I've worked on throughout my time working in product management. So internal marketing is also as critical as external marketing. I mentioned to you that in the role that I had at Yahoo, it was about working with many other groups, and oftentimes there's a lot of dependency. And so you need to really learn how to evangelize your own product, help work through prioritization and dependencies with different teams. If you're not doing that, really no one's going to do it for you. So it's important to also build those bridges with people within your company and learn how to navigate your organization. The more effective you are at that, the more effective a product manager you can be, because you have folks that trust you, that you've built a great rapport with, and that you can jointly work towards the same goal. So this is something that I learned at my time during Yahoo. So next, I was at Adobe, and at Adobe, I had the opportunity to work on the Adobe Acrobat Reader product, developing new ways of consuming PDF documents in multimedia formats. I worked on features that were tying in desktop capabilities with cloud capabilities and collaboration. And when Adobe acquired EchoSign, which was a e-signature automation solution, I had the fortune of joining the group right after the acquisition and help EchoSign integrate into Adobe, and also take on some really great and fun areas of the product line, including partnership integrations and other capabilities. And during the time I was at Yahoo, it was also a transformational time. Sorry, my time at Adobe, it was a transformational time in that Adobe was moving to the cloud. They made a very bold decision to move away from desktop and shrink wrap license-based model to a SaaS-based, subscription-based model for delivering products, for monetizing products. And even though it was not met with full approval across the market, at the end of the day, it was the right thing to do for Adobe, for growth and scale, but also ultimately customers preferred it as far as being able to get always the latest updates and understanding that they had all of the product roadmap capabilities at their fingertips. And so it was a interesting time for being in product management too, because all of these decisions then affected how your products needed to behave going forward. And so I guess one of the big takeaways from that experience was that really be bold and make those decisions, even though not everyone's gonna buy into it at first. Look at how you can break free of the status quo. Always look for new ways of which the market is trending and maybe take bigger steps than you would normally do. Building partnerships was also critical. I was responsible for some of the product integrations that Adobe Sign had with Salesforce, NetSuite, and Microsoft at the time. And it was really important and also very, very great experience to be able to see how you can tie products together, build the best of breed, and leverage the ecosystem to extend your capabilities and extend growth and adoption. And that was something that I did while I was there, was able to also showcase these capabilities at your partner events. For example, at Salesforce, they had their Dreamforce event every year, and we were able to bring about some of the new highlights. And actually, one of the things also during this experience was really get to know your competition. Get to know your competition not just by reading their website or their blog about what their new features are, but also if you are able to, in the type of product that you're working in that landscape, actually get a login if there's a free trial to one of your competitive products, and really just play around with the products out there in the market and see where your product can be differentiated against others. And I think some of that, what I did during Adobe, was that kind of competitive research at a very product level. And because of that, I think I was able to develop capabilities that essentially differentiated us and really push the product forward. So very important. I think also the fundamentals around agile development, which is broadly used today, are really, really key. And what I would say is adopt the agile methodology that works for your team. Learn to write really great user stories as a product manager. That's very important to know. Well, how do you write the acceptance criteria? How do you know that you've gotten to completion for a particular user story? How do you break down user stories? How do you then prioritize those? And when your team has a good methodology in place, then you keep putting rigor into it and keep executing that methodology and tweaking it as you go, but putting quite a bit of an importance on that. And ultimately, you'll see that drives a lot of great results. And we talk about delivering on the core essence of new products first, building the MVP or the MLP that I'll also throw out there, minimally lovable product, and then iterate from there, right? What is that core essence that you can launch and provide value into the market? And then what comes after, and then what comes after that. And those are all important things to be able to break down and think through as a product manager. And we all know people that are talkers, and they will have bright ideas and strategy ideas. But at the end of the day, as a product manager, you really need to be a doer as well and show those incremental results and show them rapidly as far as the value that you're bringing to the product and ultimately to the customer. And on this slide, I bring up the notion of knowing your audience. It's very important because as a product manager, you're at the hub of so many different conversations and so many decisions that are happening. And so it's very important as a product manager to know your audience. Your audience can be a technical audience. It could be a customer audience, a partner audience. It could be leadership. It could be a very broad audience. Maybe you're doing a presentation or a webinar about new product releases. So there's internal and external. And it's very, very key to be able to understand who that audience is and then fine-tune your message. It could be a similar topic, but fine-tuning it so that you get the most adoption of your message. And so you can be flexible to the understanding of the audience. And when you do that, it's the most effective message, I believe, at least in my experience. Then you can convey that, and it can be then highly adopted as far as the point that you're trying to get across, versus trying to use more of a generic messaging for different audiences. So I currently work at Ingram Micro, heading up the Shipwire group. And Shipwire was a startup that was acquired by Ingram Micro in 2013. I had joined soon after that, and it was another experience of being able to work on a product that is a part of a much larger organization, having the resources and scale of Ingram Micro, but being able to operate in a more of a startup environment was always been intriguing for me, as far as being able to quickly build and iterate on products. And so Shipwire is an e-commerce platform with order management, inventory management capabilities that sits on top of a physical network of warehousing, and this is a very complex environment, but we try to simplify it and make it more seamless as far as how different customers are using the service to connect to their commerce network. So one of the things that I would say has been important in this role is taking all of those learnings, and you do build the product intuition over time, and then pairing that with whatever data that you have to drive decisions. The data may help you prioritize something. It may help you then understand the scope of something. And with data, oftentimes you're not going to have all the data that you need. So you do need to marry that with product intuition. And then I would say also a healthy sense of urgency, so that oftentimes there's either a customer need, a market need, a strategic need to do something. And as a product manager, you do need to be decisive in your decisions and understand that there is a sense of urgency around what you're doing, so that you can move your roadmap forward, so that you can continue to bring value to your product and the organization. So that's something I continue to think about in my day-to-day. As far as failing fast and learning and iterating, so I think we've all run into situations where you've come to a conclusion that, okay, this might have not been the right market timing, or maybe a poor product decision was made, or maybe there's a new priority that's coming in, or a resourcing issue that resulted in a realization that, okay, maybe this wasn't the right thing to do, or we failed on this particular product release. When you come to that conclusion, you want to do it quickly and learn from it, and then either iterate to the next version of what you're trying to do, or quickly move on. I think there's been cases where sometimes these decisions take too long and it lingers, and it actually affects other parts of your roadmap. And not only that, it could affect team morale and everything else. So as a leader, you really need to think through those things. As far as learning your business, that's also important. So I talked about learning your product and learning the nuances of your product, but what about learning your business? Learning how you grow revenue. How does your business grow revenue? What are all the inputs into that? How does the cost aspects of your business come into play? How do you read your business P&L? What is impacting your margins every month? Understanding the different stakeholders beyond your group, understanding perhaps how the team is feeling as far as the team culture, and what all the competitive forces that are happening in your business. So the more you understand, the more you can up level yourself as a product leader, and so that you're not only focused on a narrow part of your product, but also trying to look at things more holistically. And this is a bit of also the point around understanding your customer experience end to end. So how does your customer experience your interaction with your business, from the point of sales engagement to onboarding to implementation to logging into your product or using your product or your APIs and your application that you're building, to the point of how do they get customer support? How do they escalate issues? How is it if they were to say terminate a contract with the product? What is that experience like? So the more you understand those pieces, the better and effective you'll be. In the business of where we're at in e-commerce, there are so many stakeholders involved, and there's physical warehouses and operations that are happening. And so how does that customer get from point A all the way to point B? And what is the experience of your customers' customers if you're working, say, on a B2B product? The more you get those pieces, then the more you can build effective products that are addressing different touch points, or at least you can pull in different stakeholders when you're building a product. And actually, in the next point about being thorough in your go-to-market, understanding how the impact of your product release translates into different aspects. So in the go-to-market, it is working with marketing, it is working with legal and compliance, it's working with your business operations or other teams within your organization. Most of the time, I would say that people don't want to be caught off guard. And I think there's been multiple examples where I've launched products or my team has launched products and we've caught someone off guard. And generally then there's a lot of catch up to do in that case. So ideally you're thinking through those things ahead of time so that all the pieces are taken care of and you can have a much more successful launch. And then to the point about data and being able to measure that effectively, after you go to market is also an important part of being thorough in looking at how you're launching products. Learn to create narratives and slides. I think it's important as product managers because we do serve a lot of different stakeholders and we do lead a lot of conversations, that it's important to be able to put together presentations or storylines that are compelling and that are convincing and persuasive and really getting to the point of what you're trying to make. And so some skills around that would be, I think, beneficial for all product managers. And as you're growing in your product career, it's a great thing to be able to connect people and to empower people. So beyond what you're doing, and certainly I'm sure many of you are doing this in your core teams and your extended teams, but to do more of that and to look across other functions. And in my current role, I love to connect the customer-facing teams with the product managers. Oftentimes, the customer-facing teams have a lot of insights that are very important for product managers to understand, or if you see a gap that's happening within the organization, to be able to pull that in and to get people together and make them feel like they're empowered to make some change. And so that's important as a product leader. And I think not every day is an easy day, as we all know in product management. And sometimes there's tough phases as we're going through different aspects of your product roadmap delivery. And so I encourage everyone to show up and be their best self, don't give up, and keep learning, really. So this concludes my presentation today. Hopefully that was helpful for you to hear some of the things that I've learned over the years, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.